The Justice and Correctional Services Minister, Ronald Lamola, says the NPA will accept donor funding. This is to assist prosecuting complex cases. Now, the Office of the Auditor-General, as well as the internal audit team, will oversee the process to allow for relevant regulations. The national spokesperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Leigh-Ann Mathys, joins us now to give us their view on the matter. Ms. Mathys, thank you very much for your time. Let's start with why the EFF does not want this decision to be implemented. What's wrong with it?
There's everything wrong with this, Goli, and I don't think any sensible, wise South African would want to see the NPA starting to take private funding take in private funding for private prosecutions, regardless of how complex the cases are. I mean, is the NPA now telling us that they have been unable to process complex cases all these years, and now they need additional funding for that? I mean, this is just basically a very corrupt decision taken by a corrupt and useless government that is led by Cyril Ramaphosa, and we must just call it for what it is. And it's rather unfortunate that the NPA is also not synonymous with its for independence and its impartiality. So this decision does not help with the reputation that they are gaining over the years. They haven't dealt with the issue of Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala farm, and they haven't dealt with issues of forced sterilization that we have raised with them. The manner in which they have been taking on prosecuting cases has been glaring to us that it is just all based on who is the enemy of the state right now and who isn't. And this is not what the NPA, and this is not what the mandate of the NPA is.
Ms. Mathys, we have been told over a number of times now that the National Prosecuting Authority, yes, it's gone through difficult moments over the last 10 years, but it is on the mend in order to execute on its duties independently of political influence in particular. Are you not comforted by what is contained here, and that is to say the Auditor-General will also oversee the regulations for these monies coming into the NPA so that perhaps they deal with that so-called influence?
There's no so-called influence, there is influence. I mean, our former Chief Justice said the same thing when he was offered funding for upgrading courts. There is no money that is given where influence is not going to take part of, where there's not going to be any political influence. And it doesn't only have to be political influence, it becomes economic influence. So those people who have money and who have the means are going to influence the NPA. The audit, in terms of the Auditor-General, this is not the first time we've heard stories about the Auditor-General. The Auditor-General was also, when Ramaphosa went to announce the flood relief, up to today we still don't have a report. We don't know where the money is, and there wasn't even any money that was given. The truth is that there's no measures that need to even be put in place. This must not happen. We must go and tap into the Treasury Department, and whatever funding, it must come out of the public purse. The National Prosecuting Agency is a public institution, and it must serve the public fairly, and it must do so independently. And this decision by Cyril Ramaphosa's led government is just another spanner in the works to lead our country to a total banana republic. And it just can't be. There's nothing that they are going to do. The NPA can stand on their head fully and whistle through their toes and tell us that they're on record or on track of being independent with no influence. It is not true. Look at the cases and how they are prosecuting cases.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding, and that is what we need to look at.
Let me ask
of course
you this.
They're going to come and they're going to say exactly that, Dolly, and we can't be gullible and naive when the practical cases that they are prosecuting and what they're not is glaring at us in our faces.
Let me ask you this final question then.
Yes.
The NPA has said a number of times, including, by the way, the Hawks, that sometimes they work in tandem in order to take cases to court that are going to be winnable. They have said that they are solely lacking in highly skilled professionals who are particularly going to deal with these complex cases. How do they get those skills in if those skills, which are probably going to be drawn from the private sector, and those people do not come cheap? How do they draw those skills in when they are not going to be fairly compensated? Because this is what Enoch Godongwana is going to say, that he needs to bail Eskom, that needs to deal with the debt that it has. He also needs to deal with Transnet in all probability. So the budget is stretched, basically.
Yeah, our budget is stretched not because the Treasury cannot generate money. It's stretched because the Treasury is not generating money. And that's a discussion for another day. We have enough resources here in this country to be able to finance all the necessary things that need to be financed. And the National Prosecuting Agency is one of the very last public institutions that needs to be accessing funding privately. We are going to drive this country into the gutters of being a banana republic, and that must never happen. There will be skills available. There are skills available here in South Africa, and I hear you that it comes at a high cost. We will find the money as they find money for everything else in this country. And if we are serious about prioritizing the independence of one of the most important institutions here in this country, a discussion should have never, ever even entered any political space that there should be private funding for the National Prosecuting Agency. It's the most ridiculous decision that has ever be taken by any country.
Leigh-Ann Mathys, she is spokesperson for the Economic Freedom Fighters political party. Thank you very much for your time.